The Voynich Manuscript, a singular artifact shrouded in mystery and encoded intrigue, remains one of the most impenetrable riddles in the history of written language and secret knowledge, a tome whose very essence has drawn the attention of cryptographers, historians, conspiracy theorists, and mystics alike, and whose origins, purpose, and meaning continue to evade definitive understanding. Discovered in 1912 by rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich in the Villa Mondragone, a Jesuit college near Rome, the manuscript is believed to have originated in the early 15th century, as carbon dating of its vellum places it between 1404 and 1438, with scholarly consensus pointing to central or northern Italy as its likely geographical point of creation during the Renaissance, a time of dramatic transformation in science, philosophy, and the arts. Containing over 230 vellum pages, many of which are adorned with colorful, sometimes fantastical illustrations, the manuscript is divided into several sections that suggest thematic consistency yet remain profoundly opaque in content. A botanical section with unknown and often hybrid-looking plants, an astronomical segment filled with strange diagrams and star charts, a biological part containing drawings of nude women immersed in interconnected pools of green liquid, a cosmological section displaying strange orbs and spiral designs, a pharmaceutical section showing jars and plant parts, and a final portion thought to be recipes, though written in a language and script that remains undeciphered to this day. This Voynichese script is unlike any known language. Comprised of around 20 to 30 characters, it flows with such linguistic regularity that many experts, including military code breakers and computational linguists, believe it represents a real, meaningful language, or at the very least, a ciphered version of one. The manuscript's statistical characteristics, such as Zipfian word frequency distribution, positional entropy, and word formation rules, suggest it is not random or meaningless gibberish, making it all the more tantalizing for those who wish to decode it. Over the decades, myriad theories have been put forward regarding its content and authorship. Some posit it is a pharmacological guide or a compendium of medieval medical knowledge, possibly aimed at women's health, but perhaps the most provocative theory, and the one that aligns with the cryptic nature and encoded secrecy of the manuscript itself, is that it represents the guarded knowledge of a secret society, an esoteric brotherhood, perhaps Rosicrucian, alchemical, or Templar in nature, who committed their hidden wisdom, rituals, and philosophies to the page in a language that only their initiated could understand. This theory is not as far-fetched as it may initially seem. Throughout the medieval and Renaissance periods, secret societies often encoded their teachings in symbols, glyphs, and artificial languages to avoid persecution from the church or to preserve their exclusivity. The Rosicrucians, who emerged in the early 17th century but claimed a far older lineage, spoke of hidden masters and arcane truths passed down through symbolic rituals. The Freemasons, whose history reaches back into the medieval stonemason guilds, encoded their rituals and degrees in symbolic language and ciphered diagrams, and the alchemists of Europe, men like Paracelsus, Basil Valentine, and even the legendary Nicholas Flamel, frequently wrote in allegory and code, hiding their formulas in poetic riddles and metaphysical diagrams that required both intellectual and spiritual insight to comprehend. The Voynich manuscript fits neatly into this lineage of concealed knowledge. Its botanical drawings do not resemble any known plants, yet suggest purposeful construction, as if describing symbolic herbs with esoteric properties. Its astronomical illustrations do not match any known constellations, yet echo the cyclical patterns revered in Hermetic cosmology, and the bathing women and interconnected pools may hint at the alchemical processes of dissolution and transformation, often represented by the feminine principle in esoteric traditions. Even the manuscript's lack of provenance before the 17th century, when it entered the hands of alchemist Georg Baresch and later came into the possession of the court of Rudolph II, Holy Roman Emperor and noted patron of mystics and occultists, adds fuel to the fire of secret society speculation, as it may have been kept deliberately out of circulation, passed quietly from master to initiate, hidden from inquisitorial eyes. The coded script itself, Voynich, could be a cipher designed by the society to protect their knowledge, possibly based on an altered form of Latin, Greek, or Hebrew, or even a constructed language with grammar rules and vocabulary known only to the group's initiates. The repetition patterns within the text suggest not a simple substitution cipher, but a complex multi-layered code that may involve phonetic encoding, steganography, or positional keying, techniques known to certain Renaissance cryptographers and occultists. Indeed, the period during which the manuscript was created coincided with the flourishing of cryptographic thought. Figures like Leon Battista Alberti, who devised the first known polyalphabetic cipher, and Johannes Trithemius, whose steganographia blended cryptography with angelic and magical communication, exemplify the kind of minds that might have produced such a text. If we assume the Voynich Manuscript to be a creation of such a mind or a group of minds, then the purpose becomes clearer: to safeguard wisdom deemed too dangerous or too sacred for the uninitiated. Whether that wisdom involved herbal medicine, spiritual transformation, sexual alchemy, or metaphysical cosmology, the secrecy of the text suggests an intentional effort to preserve and restrict its contents. The elaborate detail of the illustrations, the regularity of the script, and the division into sections all point to a deliberate design rather than random fabrication. Moreover, some have speculated that the manuscript may have served not merely as a record of knowledge, but as a training manual, a sort of guidebook for those ascending the ranks of the society, filled with encoded symbols that, once understood, would unlock higher truths. This aligns with the initiatory structure of many secret societies, where layers of knowledge are revealed only as the initiate progresses. Others argue that the manuscript's imagery contains layers of meaning accessible only to those familiar with specific spiritual or esoteric traditions. The nude women in pools may reference the alchemical idea of purification and rebirth through the prima materia, the original chaotic substance. The zodiac signs and astrological charts could relate to the timing of ritual practices or the alignment of celestial forces with human transformation. The jars and roots may describe the alchemist's materia medica, a spiritual pharmacology whose effects were said to transcend the physical body. The lack of any known key or reference to the manuscript in contemporary literature supports the idea that it was never meant for public consumption. It was meant for the initiated, for those few deemed worthy to access its truths. Modern cryptographers have applied statistical analysis, machine learning, and linguistic modeling to the manuscript, yielding fascinating insights but no definitive solution. A 2019 study claimed to have identified Hebrew as the base language of the text, arguing that it was encoded using letter substitution and omission of vowels, a technique used by Jewish mystics and Kabbalists. But this claim, like many before it, has been contested by scholars in historical linguistics. Others have suggested that the manuscript is an example of glossolalia, or spirit language, similar to the automatic writing found in shamanic or mystical traditions, where the writer is not consciously encoding, but transmitting spiritual knowledge in a symbolic form. There is even a fringe theory that the manuscript is of extraterrestrial origin, or a time-traveling artifact from a future or parallel civilization, created using logic and symbology unfamiliar to our current frame of reference. Yet perhaps the more grounded and compelling explanation is that it was a deliberate effort by a secret society, or an individual steeped in the teachings of such a society, to record spiritual, medicinal, and philosophical insights in a form protected from misuse, corruption, or persecution. The manuscript's journey from its obscure origins through the courts of mystics and emperors into the modern vaults of Yale's Voynich Library echoes the pattern of secret knowledge being preserved, rediscovered, and questioned across the ages. It is a Rosetta Stone without a match, a cipher without a key, a scripture for a faith that has no name. And so the Voynich Manuscript endures not only as an unsolved puzzle, but as a symbol of humanity's enduring hunger for hidden truths, our fascination with the unknown, and our suspicion that beneath the surface of recorded history lies a deeper, more arcane current of understanding, protected by those who, from the shadows, keep watch over the sacred and the secret.